Well, you already heard that my friend Jennifer is not well right now. On top of having a fever and the flu, she ended up with pneumonia, and her little boy is ill. So I would definitely appreciate your prayers for them. I'm told that Malta is ranked #1 for the best place to be at Christmas time. And it's beautiful walking through the streets of Valletta. But it's also really the best place to be for an unborn child, because you protect from conception without exception. I have a global organization, Save the One, made up of over 525 like me mothers, or like me women who became pregnant by rape, women like my friend Jennifer, who are mothers who are raising their children after having been raped, birth mothers from rape, and women who regret aborting after having been raped. And we are very happy to be working with Life Network Foundation of Malta, and grateful for the opportunity to return here. Last year, had a wonderful visit with a lot of television interviews, media, and schools, and then now I think I've spoken at more than double the schools this year because they had so many requests. And I can tell you that the youth that I addressed in Malta, which includes public schools, they were very pleased to have me come speak. And I'm glad to know that these children appreciate my story and that they value life. Many of them said that they will never forget this. And this is what we want. We want to be able to reach the next generation to make sure that they are as pro-life as their parents and grandparents have been. And so continuing on for generations to come, we want to make sure that the children of Malta are protected and that the blood of Maltese children will not be spilled on your soil. In the United States, we have over 1 million a year who are aborted. And that doesn't include the children who are being killed through the process of IVF. As an attorney, I litigated the first frozen embryo case in Michigan and the third in the United States. I co-founded Embryo Defense with Halessia McQueen. She is another attorney who actually fought for her own embryos all the way up to the Missouri Supreme Court. And just this past year, despite the contract that she and her husband had signed, saying that in the event of a divorce, she would be able to have her children, the courts have ruled that her unborn children are property. And this is barbaric. This is back to the days of antiquity, when children were treated as property. We've abolished slavery in most of the world because we realize that it is barbaric to treat people as property. And yet today in the United States, this is exactly what is happening. We've gone back in time to the days of old when human beings were treated as property. It's also barbaric to not just treat unborn children as property, but also to engage in child sacrifice. I know that throughout Europe and other parts of the world, nations like Malta, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Peru, Philippines, many nations around the world who protect from conception without exception are treated as being old world and archaic. But what's really archaic and barbaric is child sacrifice. The times of in the Bible when people would sacrifice their children to false gods. And that's exactly what happens when you start sacrificing the lives of children, beginning with those conceived in rape, beginning with those who are embryos. And instead of being in the womb, they're unprotected in this artificial environment. You don't freeze people. But that's exactly what's happening in much of the world. And they are the ones who are old world, barbaric. So please don't let them treat you this way. Malta is morally superior because you do not choose violence as a solution, because you don't dehumanize people as a solution to problems such as infertility. You need to have life-affirming solutions. I was speaking at a class the other day in Gozo, and I brought up the recent news out of Iceland, where they were celebrating just within the last couple of months that they had eradicated Down syndrome. Eradicated. This is the same language of the Nazis when they talked about eradicating the Jews. And again, this is barbaric. This is not love. This is a nation of barbarians when you start to treat people that way, and yet Iceland pretends to be progressive. This is not progress, this is being regressive. And so Malta should be proud that you love children without exception. And what happened in this classroom is that there were classmates of this girl who leaned over and comforted her and smiled at her to show that they love her and they care for her. I wish that there were a video of this moment so that the people of Iceland could see how much better Malta is, because you have love. In the United States, it took 40 years of legalized abortion and over 1 million a year being killed before we had 700,000 at our March for Life. And the only reason why we had that many was because many people considered 40 to be a biblical number. And so there was a big effort to get even more people out that year. But it's sad that it took abortion becoming legal for every reason in order to have a March for Life. When they began legalizing abortion in the late 1960s, just before I was born, in the South, in the southern states, they began legalizing in cases of rape. There was no March for Life in the United States because no one cared. I was protected in Michigan, where people still cared, but there wasn't a March for Life. In Peru, a year and a half ago, 1 month after they successfully defeated the repeated effort to legalize abortion in cases of rape, they had a March for Life in Lima. And they had 700,000 show up at their March for Life in Lima. They didn't wait until abortion became legal for every reason, any reason, through all 9 months, like what happened in the United States, in order for them to have 700,000 people showed up. They cared enough for the least of these. They cared enough for the child conceived in rape to be able to show up. And I am so grateful for all of you who are here tonight who aren't waiting for the worst to happen here in Malta, who care enough for the child conceived in rape, who care enough for the embryo to show up tonight in the cold and the drizzling rain. You're here. And I hope that other people in Malta will see your example and that they won't wait any further, and that next year they will be here more and more every year, because Malta is being targeted by the likes of Soros and others who are pouring money into nations just like Malta to try to legalize abortion beginning with rape, to legalize child killing beginning with embryos. Sadly, just this week, Bolivia, their Senate passed a bill to legalize abortion in cases of rape, and it's expected that their president will sign this bill. In Chile, just a couple of months ago, they legalized abortion for 3 causes. And again, it was the outside funding that caused this to happen. Please, I hope that you will alert the people of Malta, the good people here, to not be asleep, to not just think that this can't happen here. Because you are being attacked, you are specifically being targeted. And you should see the threat. The last time I was here, I had a tour of Malta, and I learned the history of World War II and how your island was targeted, strategically targeted. And I see the same thing happening here. And we need the people of Malta to see it and not to be blind, to be asleep. And so please, after this, go home, talk to your friends, sound the alarm, warn people how Malta is being targeted, and do not allow the children of Malta to have their blood spilled on your soil. Thank you.